Hey, welcome to Heroes. I'm Paul,
And I'm Patrick.
and today, in honor of Fast and the Furious X coming
X.
out tomorrow, I believe in Ireland and I think in Europe, we are doing a show on the Fast and the Furious franchise and to see if it has run its course, because we are coming to the end of the franchise here. It is coming to the end of the franchise. We have two more. I think we've
If
possibly
Vin
two more
Diesel
movies.
gets his way, there's two more. This
Yeah.
last part, X, by the way, for anybody who isn't familiar with their Roman numerals being 10, he wants to make that a three-parter, so two more. But the studio only officially said there would be one more. So if it maketh the money, he getteth the extra film, I guess.
Yeah, I can see that kind of happening. So, which would be, I don't know if I like that, to be honest.
It's a bit of a thing, isn't it? I'm assuming he knows that the studio have already greenlit the two. They just haven't announced it.
Yeah, that's
I hope.
well. It also could be the fact. So, which is yeah. So we are going to be talking about the Fast and Furious franchise. We already seem like we're revving to go. The car puns are going to be coming hot and heavy. I am sorry. Which is, but yeah, so we are going to be talking about the Fast and Furious franchise with the Fast X coming out this week, and also we're going to be talking about kind of the history of the franchise, where it's kind of gone to now, and what kind of Fast X needs to do to kind of put it back onto the pedestal that it was during, I guess, the
It's heyday.
middle part of the kind of
Yeah,
movies.
and I think that's probably going to be part of our discussion, Paul. From what started out as a movie franchise that nobody knew was going to be a franchise, something to almost be ridiculed by some, to be adored by others, and to everyone else was like, "Oh, that's interesting." To getting actual genuine respect and making big money, to then becoming what in the most recent movie, its last movie, is just farce and self parody, pretty much almost. So everybody's waiting to see if Fast X, and I do love their naming. We have to take a moment for the naming, because you've got Fast and Furious. We've done this before. Too Fast, Too Furious, dumbest of all. Then at one point, one of them is called just Fast and Furious. No, there's. We're back to the thing,
Yep.
which is very difficult to articulate when you're saying the. But then you've got, the short names for things like F8, the fate of the Furious, Fast 8, all of the various Fast 5, all these kind of fun things. And obviously, people who wanted to call Fast 10, so they could say, fasten your seatbelts. I know. It's
No, no.
Fast and Furious naming puns alone is a whole episode of disgust.
Yeah.
But secret joy.
Yeah.
Secret joy.
So just to go through in release order, not chronological order, because I don't want to go through that,
Yeah.
open that can of worms. Fast and Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious, Fast and Furious, Tokyo Drift, Fast and Furious, Fast
Yes.
5, Fast and the Furious, Furious 7,
Yes.
The Fate of the Furious, F9, and Fast X. It definitely feels like they were just like, we need to put these things down, which
Yeah.
is
I think they need to get to 12 so you can press F12 for like reboot or help or whatever it might be most associated with on a keyboard.
that would be a genius. I'll say this now. That would be a genius like advertisement thing if they were able to hack everybody's computer, and when you press F12, it just brings you to a trailer of F12 of like Fast and Furious 12.
Or just says the word family. That's it.
Sort of plastering all over like the like
Badly.
hackers kind of thing. So yeah, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go through some of the history of the franchise, which was and some of the interesting points of kind of the history of the family, the Furious family, the Fast family.
Fast family.
Like
The FFF, all the families.
yeah,
There's a load of F's in this stuff. Yeah, no cursing, really.
yeah. They they do a lot of cursing actually. I just realized.
Actually, yeah, no, they do. That's true.
So we'll go through some of them, which is I'm going to go through a bit of the budgeting thing, which is a little bit of the kind of more So the Fast and the Furious franchise has been printing money, printing money. I do apologize about the last F9 kind of one. I left some stuff there, but yeah. So it comes from humble beginnings, Patrick, with its 38 million, and then making a bomb of 207 million worldwide.
Which early 2000s, they're good numbers for the type of film it was. It was a big hit.
Yeah, it was a big hit in the sense that its genre that it chose to be was more towards the underground car racing kind of scene, which isn't
I, like
is so far
based
away
on
from
an
it.
article, like they kind of they took the idea from an article. I think it was in Vice or something similar, and it was supposed to be the underground drag racing scene, illegal, illicit stuff. They threw a bit of a story on top of that, and to be fair, I don't think it ever gets credit, that first movie, that it started a genre. Like it started its own subgenre, really.
It did, like, because after that we had, well, I don't, yeah, around the same time we had then Torque, which is the bike one, which we did a rapid review. I'll put it up in for VOD.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is another thing. Need for Speed eventually did also get released as well, which had Jesse from Breaking Bad,
That's right.
which is in it. We also had Fast, which was a funny rock film, which was a thing about a guy going around doing revenge, which was very funny. Has nothing to do with the series.
Many imitators, mostly crap.
Yeah.
To be fair, like, and somebody out there is going to have their personal favorite, a Fast and the Furious knockoff. But by and large, there was a load of imitators. Redline, famously, Eddie Griffin crashing a Ferrari Enzo accidentally as part of a press junket that got it a whole load of press. Yeah, like there was a whole load of cash-in movies, and most of them were rich people being silly.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, that Ferrari one was pretty bad. So yeah, this started the genre, which is it was based just about essentially a FBI agent. I won't give too much away, and I'm not going through all of them, but
No.
to show kind of where this starts off is it's an FBI agent, Paul Walker's character, who is essentially investigating a underground crew and their like robberies essentially, and obviously this is where the story of family comes in, as he like joined Dom's crew. So it was about essentially it was a crime kind of investigation kind of thing where he realizes that the criminals are not all that bad kind of thing, and which is so yeah it's but
Paul,
mostly
as resident car nerd, I'm going to just sprinkle in some things for the car nerds out there. Danger to Manifold, overnighting parts from Japan. All of these jokes came from this movie, but also it meant that nobody could buy Mitsubishi Eclipse ever again without it being ruined by somebody trying to Fast and the Furious it. It changed so much about car culture because it got so many people into it, and quickly ruined an awful lot of cars that people now it's put up the price on so many things because there are so many. The phrase we use is unmolested examples. And this film really did. It changed more than just movie culture. It changed car culture too.
Yeah, and yeah, like the GT Dodge Charger was also ruined because now everyone was trying to cut holes in it and put an extra big engine in it, and you're just like,
Yeah.
it's not going to wheelie. I'm sorry. Like, no matter what engine you put in it, they've put gas propelling things underneath the car as anyway.
That really was ridiculous.
So, so Fast and Furious was a great success, which was with its 207 million. The second one, Too Fast, Too Furious, which was also the introduction of one. What was sorry,
Tyrese.
Yeah, Tyrese. He joined the crew, and eventually became a bigger kind of member in the overall franchise.
Paul, can you tell the people at home? Because I sent Paul I did F1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I wrote like a sentence or maybe a sentence and a half of just a quick synopsis of what I thought of each of these. For Too Fast, Too Furious, it was the shortest one. And Paul, in case you don't have it at hand, I'll recount it. Checking my notes, all I said after F2 or Too Fast, Too Furious was the reason people hate sequels.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is by far the worst in the franchise. Yet look at the numbers say different. The numbers actually support that it did okay because of the goodwill of the first one.
Yeah, this is the thing. So Too Fast, Too Furious got like essentially pretty much double the budget of the original one, which was so 38 million, then jumps up to 76 million, which is great. Congratulations to the Fast and the Furious franchise. This was not the movie to do it on, but because it was awful.
No Dom Toretto, no Vin Diesel, the archangel of this whole series now. It really is the Vin Diesel show. Don't get me wrong, Paul Walker, huge part of it, sadly, has left us. But this is what Fast and the Furious without Vin Diesel look like.
Yeah.
And that's not good.
This also introduced Ludacris, I think, as well. Actually, now
it did. Actually, it did.
So the reason I put this one up is that it was more venturing into the more kind of actiony style, kind of like buddy cop thing that they tried to do, and obviously without Vin Diesel and everybody, but it was a massive flop. So it was also the start of kind of the universe, I guess, would probably be the good way of putting it, because after that, essentially we had, Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, which was them trying to introduce a brand new bunch of people together, kind of like, I guess, spreading the wings of where it was coming from. Now, Too Fast and Too Furious did make 236 million, which was better than the original one, but with the extra budget. Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, 85 million, so they've upped the budget a little bit more. Only made 158, still in profit, but not as good as it was.
And this is the thing, people always go, say the third one, Tokyo Drift was terrible. The damage was done with the second one. It made so much of its money by people going and hoping that, the sequel to that film that was really good, and they got burnt so hard that once Tokyo Drift came along, they were like, we're not doing that again. It was really hurt by how bad its preceding film was. And if you notice, Tokyo Drift didn't have anybody that it should have had in it. It didn't just not have. Technically, it does have Vin Diesel. Spoiler for a post-credit scene. But it like had one of the all-time worst performances by an actor in a movie from Lucas Black, the star. You had no Paul Walker, but it did, and a lot of people look back at it now and give it credit. It was riding the wave of drift culture, which was an interesting move for them to go from, drag racing, illegal drag racing on the street and car modification, to the Japanese car modification and toge, the basically drifting downhill. It introduced the character that made everybody love Fast and the Furious, that wasn't Vin Diesel or Paul Walker or Jordana Brewster or Michelle Rodriguez. It introduced Sung Kang as Han. And Han is by far, if you talk to most like car nerd people, are like, yeah, Han's the cool one. We like Han. Han is the guy. Nobody wants to be Dom Toretto or even Paul Walker. They're like, yeah, Han is cool.
Yeah. No, he was his signature snack eating and everything like that. It's just made his character just absolutely amazing. He is played by Sung Kang, which is but yeah, so yeah, Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift brings it back to the original concept of the fact that it's about cars and drifting and kind of underground culture. Introducing some new characters that do eventually make it into the bigger ones. Fast and Furious, the 2009, which is the first one in the installments. Now this is where we're going to skip a couple because between Fast and the Furious and about Fast and Furious 6, it's when they start going into more of the heist elements of the movies and stuff like that, which was a good change in the sense of kind of building a team and kind of heisting stuff. It brought original back ideas of fancy cars, which was family. Too bad I don't have a family kind of counter, and also bringing back the or bringing it to so heist was already introduced in the first movie. Family already in the first movie. Pretty much all of the returning cast as well. In the Fast and the Furious 4.
Yeah, it got the originals back. It was soft reboot territory.
Yes.
That tried to ignore the Tokyo Drift ever happened and begrudgingly acknowledged Too Fast, Too Furious, like we all do. Begrudgingly acknowledge its existence.
So between Fast Five and Fast Six, this is where it kind of went into that kind of like actiony, heisty, family kind of thing. This is the thing. This is the groundbreaking kind of stuff because this is Fast and the Furious Four was 85 million budget to 363 like box office. You know, this is where it starts building ground. 125 to 626. Like there's like this is where they just started making bank. You know, kind of thing.
And Paul, it's fair to say that this is where they built the Fast and Furious franchise, not just on the numbers, but in people's minds. Because when people think of Fast and the Furious, they don't really think of the first one or the second one or the third one. It'll be one of these, or maybe even all of these as a mix: 4, 5, 6, and eventually 7. It's where the mainstay ideas of the show or the movie beyond cars came from. Like you say, heist movies. They even made the good guy Paul Walker, that was the conflicted FBI agent. He's just a full on criminal by the end of all this, and is just part of the crew. So it's a crew of people, and then they set their formula from there. Kill a person, bring a person back. Kill a person,
Yeah.
bring a person back. Introduce new muscle. Say the word family. Have Dom Toretto in some variant of a Charger. It's incredible when you look at the whole franchise that 4, 5, 6, and 7 are movies that completely skip the genre of the first three. And I mean completely. Like they're all considered in the same franchise, but should they really even be?
But
Because they barely are.
that's the thing. The first one is a culture movie. Fast and the Furious, a buddy cop one. The second one goes back to a underground culture movie, and as you said, the rest of them becomes an amalgamation of the first three with heist actiony kind of thing. And you're right, they start introducing characters like which got Hobbs, which is Jason or Dwayne Johnson's character, and this reminisces the Paul Walker's original. He's a good cop trying to hunt them down and then becomes their friend. You know, like that formula becomes quite big. Then they flip it as well with the Shaw brothers. Owen Shaw, played by Luke Evans, which was his brother, played by Jason Statham, becomes then a friend. Eventually, is a villain and then becomes a friend. Like,
Oh, that's it. And there's nothing more Fast and the Furious him being introduced in a movie as an antagonist, by the end of it being part of the crew, and by the next movie being a protagonist. You don't happen to have a picture of some muscle cars there, do you?
I do indeed.
Well, you can kindly queue up the muscle car and the other muscle afterwards, because I'm going to make a small point that this is the essence of Fast and the Furious. Obviously, there's an automotive through line, but really it's about heist, or it's more Mission Impossible than it is Fast and the Furious street racing, because they don't race. There is no more racing. It's none of that stuff. But the Vin Diesel effect is that they made him, they caricatured him, they made him the anchor point of it, along with Paul Walker. He says family, he drinks Corona by holding it by the neck, and he drives some variant, and the picture that's on screen right now, some variant of a Dodge Charger or Challenger or some other Mopar. Like there's, for car people, they'll know that these are all three different variants of Chargers, Challengers, etc. He does the same thing with modern ones. They just sprinkle in stuff so that car nerds will go, I see what you're doing here. But for anybody who thinks that car nerds must love these movies for the cars, it's not really. We're loving it for the action stuff and just the little nods to car culture. But Vin has a type, and it isn't just in his Mopar Diesel or Vin Diesel drives a Charger thing. If you can flip to the muscle men of the show, Vin was a big dude, and it helped make him famous. But he really did realize you can start bringing in more muscle, and pretty much since that introduction of Hobbs, The Rock, he had Statham, another big guy. He's like, how do we go bigger? They got John Cena, get another big guy, and in this latest one, they've got your man Alan Richardson.
Yeah.
He plays, for anybody who doesn't know him, he plays the TV show version of Jack Reacher.
Yeah.
The dude is a giant. Like he's essentially a massive muscle. So, horsepower and roids, whatever it is about it all, Vin Diesel knows what he's doing. He's like, yep, I'm going to get big me against big other person. There'll be other big people. There'll be big muscly cars. Paul Walker represented another side of it, where he had, the Supras and Lancers and Japanese cars and is synonymous with the Nissan Skyline. And they introduced loads of characters in that way. But if you look at how many people they added and took away from Fast 4 all the way to Fast 9, the last one, it's incredible. Like, the cast list is longer than the screen.
Yeah. Like I can go through even just villains alone. Paul Walker, Vin Diesel, which had Tyrese Gibson, Song Kang, Michelle Rodriguez, Ludacris, John Cena, Jason Statham, Gal Gadot, which was Dwayne Johnson, Rick Young, Luke Evans, which was Zhang. Oh, I can't remember. He's
Eliza Pataki will be there somewhere, I think is her name. The Brazilian person.
Yeah, James Cohanson, Charlie Sharon. Like, the list varies between, like, A-listing people to like, to people who are coming up in the series or up in the industry. And so, like, it's a breeding ground of, like, if you want to show yourself as an action star now, Fast and Furious is one of the places that you can go, kind of thing.
And it'll set you up for life. And even if you read the script and you die in it, like Paul Han, introduced in Fast and Furious 3, dies at the end of it. Fast and Furious 4, he's back. Letty dies in Fast and Furious 4, comes back in an end credit scene in Fast and Furious 5. They're all back again for Fast and Furious 6, and more people die. That are possibly coming back. Like, it not just gives you a career, but it gives you something that you can almost dip in and out of a franchise going, I'll do the even numbered ones, please.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, like, that's the thing, is it's a place where you can do. See, this is, and then we have essentially, well, although the numbers, so this is the interesting thing, although the numbers don't tell us, Furious 7, like, 190 million box or budget to 1.5 billion for the box office worldwide. Not 8 was a little, like, dipped a little bit, which is with its 1.2 billion kind of thing. Fast 9, as I said, that's wrong, which is, it does have an estimate budget of 2 million, but 200 million, but which the box office is wrong.
Can we talk quality glide path for one moment?
But that's the thing. This is the downfall of kind of where it goes from now. Is where we're kind of we're leading into, is the fact is the Furious 7 was starting to show cracks, and it's not even the which is in the Dwayne Johnson kind of leaving to go for do Hobbs and Shaw. It starts showing the cracks of kind of they've gone too far.
Well, and the way I see it is, once you get out of the first 3, a mixed bag of good, bad, different. And then you're into that middle genre of heist team movies. I thought 4 and 5 really did the hard work of rebuilding the franchise. I really thought, 6, European Vacation, as I call it, it hit that perfect balance of super action, super everything. Then Paul Walker passes away during Fast and Furious 7. They dealt with it brilliantly. Like, there's no two ways about it. People who hate this franchise are still okay with how they dealt with that. Like, it was a heck of a job. But the cracks were starting to show, because they'd been on such a brilliant glide path with 4, 5, 6, 7 was like, we're at peak Fast and the Furious, and we've had to let Paul Walker go and give him a perfect send off. If it had stopped there, they may be better off from a quality perspective than where they ended up, because Fast 8 turned everything up a notch where it shouldn't really have been turned up a notch. The same way that Fast and the Furious 2 was missing Vin Diesel, Fast and the Furious 8 was missing Paul Walker, and not just as a person, but as an anchor to say, let's have enough people to focus on as stars that we don't have to be so ridiculous with, kicking torpedoes on the ice out of nuclear submarines, all, just crazy stuff. But people were like, okay, it's Fast and the Furious, it can get a bit silly. Oh, that was close to jumping the shark. And then Fast 9 happened.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody in the cinema looked down and saw the shark that they were flying over along with this movie. It's Fast and the Furious is in trouble because Fast 9 is universally panned. Like, people are not. It's a parody. It insulted it's insulted itself while it was being made.
Yeah, like this is the thing. As you said with Paul Walker, you're missing essentially Dom's partner in crime. You're missing that kind of like counterweight to the character, which falls down. They tried to put in Dwayne Johnson as essentially that counterweight, but essentially there was already cracks in the sense that those two were butting heads over production and stuff like that, and it was already kind of like, I guess, agreed upon that Dwayne was going to no longer be part of the main kind of focus. So like Fast 8 had that kind of cracking thing of like, yeah, they now had set pieces. They had a big set piece, and that was the ludicrous thing. In Fast 8, it was that submarine. In Fast 9, it actually had two. It was
at least two.
It was the magnet scene, where they essentially go around the place, which is with massive, powerful magnets. It turns out that they probably saw what is it? What's the Ryan Reynolds film? Something 6.
Oh yeah, Underground 6. Yeah.
They saw magnets, so we're just like, that's a great idea. We'll do magnets. They also did, which has now become one of the most hated scenes of probably Hear Us Out. Not only probably mentions of the entire thing. It's the
going to space
car.
Space Fiero. It's look, I can even get over that now, but we haven't mentioned one important thing that's never starred in Fast and the Furious, and that's physics. The laws of science have never been part of the franchise, from flying cars to just all sorts of ridiculous stuff. And I think Fast 9, with magnetism working as magnetism can't, it was all just pretty bad. But then to kind of go, we said we'd end up in space in this one, ha ha ha, and then finding a way to shoehorn it in with some duct tape.
Yeah.
It was laughing at itself. And I think most people in the theater started thinking, this stuff is starting to laugh at me too. We were all laughing together before that. Now it's, it's kind of, oh, we're not laughing with you. Or we're not laughing at you, we're laughing with you. It was starting to feel like they were laughing at us. You'll watch this stuff and give us your money.
Yeah, like this is the downfall. Kind of has a lot of feels to it, which is they've gone too far in their action sequences, meaning that they had to go bigger and bolder. The only way to do this was to kind of separate realism to just ludicrousness and to kind of craziness. Paul Walker's passing also ended up causing obviously some unbalancing within the team and stuff like that on the cast.
Yeah,
that they tried to fill many times. They tried to fill it like in Fast 9, they tried to fill it with John Cena as Dom's brother, in the kind of sense. In Fast 8, they tried to do it with Charlize Theron in the sense of having like this clever villain, but they've already done that. They already did that with kind of Jason Statham's which is Deckard Shaw kind of character. So Fast 8, they built up. Fast 7 had the perfect kind of like set piece. 8 went too far, and 9 was just like, we're stuck at going too far. We have to be bigger and better. So now we talk to Fast 9 or Fast 10. Okay. Which is
and
this is the problem with the Fast 10. As we said, it stayed on the streets in number 1, and now it's gone to space. So Fast X has a lot to bring the franchise back to Earth. I'm really sorry about that. I'm really sorry.
Pun on, it's Fast and the Furious. Go for it.
Yeah, Fast 10 has a lot to do with it. Has a lot to kind of, I guess, live up to in the sense of what is it going to do? Because we've already had a connection. We've already had a brother connection with Owen Shaw and Deckard Shaw. We've already had a brother connection with which is John Cena's character and Dom.
Yep.
Which is We now have another one.
Yes.
Which is
They're going back to their big successful heist film in Brazil.
yeah,
And they're going to bring a relative in the shape of Aquaman back into it. So that I like, and I don't like the idea, but I like the signal that it sends. Oh, Fast and the Furious is doing what it knows how to do again. It's digging into its own stuff and resurrecting people, or making a family connection. It's doing the Fast and Furious.
yes.
So I'm kind of thinking, okay, they're going back to drinking their own Kool-Aid rather than just jazz handsing the hell out of it. So I actually think it's a positive thing that they're doing stupidly ridiculous stuff, but in a Fast and Furious way, hopefully.
Yeah, so Jason Momoa is essentially a character in which is coming back who's linked to another character within the franchise. He's going to be the main villain. I think, yeah, I do think of them essentially going back to formula in a way is a good idea.
It's the way to do it.
Though from the trailers, Jason Momoa's character is like the opposite of Dom, which I do like, in the sense that they realize they've mixed Jason Dwayne Johnson and Charlie Theron's character essentially together, which is nice feeling of kind of like confident, playful, but also capable and strong, which is a nice kind of mixture kind of thing. We haven't had a character like this yet. We've had characters who are dangerous, in either being physical or smart, like John Cena's character, kind of, but it led flat a little bit with the whole story of him being his brother. This is kind of more external crisis, kind of coming back to play. So,
And
it's still an action film.
It is. Sorry, go on.
No, that's
No,
it's.
I was just going to say, well, Dom Toretto's had his, and here's one for the DC folks. He's had his Penguin. He's had his Riddler. He's had quite the rogues gallery in lots of different ways, but he's never had his Joker. And it looks like they've cottoned on to the idea of give Dom his Joker, give him that wild card opposite number, and let everybody else be the bit players around it that they need to be, because it's a big and great cast, but you can't fully develop people, and that's how they've been able to introduce. Everybody forgets young Clint Eastwood's son. What's his name? Sean Eastwood, Mr. Eastwood. I can never remember his first name. Sorry, his dad's just too famous. Like we've had Kurt Russell. People have just showed up and disappeared in this franchise. It's time to just acknowledge. You've got to know that Vin Diesel is going to be the thing you're hanging your hat on. Michelle Rodriguez will always be an important thing there too, and whatever connection they have to Paul Walker. It'll be his son named Brian now, Toretto's son named Brian. That'll be the spiritual link, I guess.
Yeah.
But you're as good as your villain. And Charlize Theron was that kind of Riddler-esque good villain for one of the movies that made it work. I really hope that Jason Momoa, from the trailer and from what I can understand, is going to be, like you say, he's going to be that good wild card, very much an opposite to Dom instigator. And if they're building a trilogy, my bet this time is that they're not going to change villain at the end of this movie. I haven't seen the movie, but I'm guessing Momoa isn't a one and done.
No, I don't think so either. I think this is going to be the interesting kind of thing of how are they going to keep him alive yet have them win, kind of thing. Or are they going to win? That's the thing. We could be left with a cliffhanger kind of moment to go to the next movie, which will be interesting, kind of like interlinking, because we haven't really had kind of overall kind of hanging moments, cliffhanger moments. But
it's true.
The other interesting thing about the plot is throughout the film franchise, no one has actually specifically been going after the family. In the in F9, John Cena's character was specifically going for Dom.
True.
Charles Theron's character was specifically going after them because they had the God's Eye, which is the device that
the wang doodle of the movie.
Each of the characters weren't actually going. They had another thing that they were going for, that the team got in the way, that they targeted. Now, Jason Statham wanted revenge on Dom because he killed Luke because he killed his brother,
His brother.
kind of thing. So like the Decker Shaw storyline is probably the closest one to this one.
That's true.
Kind of thing. But this is specifically that Jason Momoa's character seems to be just doing scorched earth kind of stuff.
Which, like I say, that's why they need the new type of villain. Just like you'll get your best Batman when you mix, you can't just have him fighting the same rogue every time. You want to mix it up and have a different challenge. I think, Paul, I think it'll be great if this movie works out and they do manage to make a trilogy out of it, and they can make Jason Momoa's character what I hope they do.
Yeah.
There will be an opportunity to add back in more, as is the Fast and Furious way. There's already talks that maybe Dwayne Johnson will come back.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, Paul, sidebar, Dwayne Johnson has tried to take over a few franchises, as we know.
Yes.
Black Adam, looking at you, trying to take over DC. Had a bit of the same kind of action here in the Fast and Furious franchise, didn't work out. I'm wondering if he's maybe going to start, keeping the head down a little bit and maybe coming back and being a more cooperative partner in some of this stuff.
I wouldn't be surprised about it, which was because this was the first indication of his franchise stealing. Like, we like Dwayne in movies,
Love him,
but this was the first indication of essentially franchise stealing, which was him having button heads with Vin Diesel and then also going off and doing Hobbs and Shaw, which is with Jason Statham, kind of thing. I liked the Hobbs and Shaw film, but I liked it as a separate thing. Like, kind of thing. Not a good movie, but an enjoyable, very much fun one.
I love Jason Statham, to be honest.
Jason Statham is really good. He has kept me in the Expendables quite a lot, as Christmas. Great name. But so the Fast. So just to go through, Fast X has a lot on its shoulders because it's the first in an ending possible trilogy or duet kind of film. This is supposedly the end of the franchise. So there's a lot on its shoulders. And I don't know if I'm optimistic about the villain. I don't know about the plot though. As in, I don't know too much about the plot kind of thing. But on that note, guys, we're going to come back. We're going to do an ad. We're going to come back. We're going to give some of our closing kind of thoughts on the whole thing, and then we'll go to your comments, and we'll probably jump out then. So, we will see you in a couple of minutes.
See you soon. You obviously like two people talking about movies, or you wouldn't even be seeing this ad. Well, don't tell anyone. But Hear Us Out isn't the only choice. You should check out our friends over at It Takes Two podcast. It's a podcast where two people take two films with the same plot or premise, watch and discuss them. Films like Gremlins and Critters, or The Truman Show on EdTV. Lisa and Nick don't stop there though. They get creative and compare some unexpected movies. Some that you don't see the connection until you realise that they can be described in the same way. They launch new episodes every second Tuesday, or Monday if you're in New Zealand. Find them on your favourite podcast service, or check the link in our description down below. That's It Takes Two podcast. Tell them Hear Us Out sent you.
Now, hey, welcome back. We were just that was advertising just about It Takes Two, which was our friends, podcast friends. They do two movies and they compare them, having similar plots and everything like that. It's a great watch. I've been listening to their D&D one because it specifically names me a couple of times because I'm the DM. Anyway, on to less egotistical things.
No, Paul, big yourself up. We're all here for it. We're all here for it. By the way, Paul also has is part of another channel called Homebrew Quest. You can find the details in the description down below. I just want to make Paul feel uncomfortable for a second. Paul, you weren't doing anything wrong. Go for it.
No, I'm blushing now, but it's also because the heat in this room is absolutely killer.
Yeah, I'm absolutely sweating in my pants, folks. Just so you know.
Just so you get a kind of the struggles that we go through to bring you information, the Jason Momoa might be a mix of John Cena and Charlize Theron.
There you go. And also, I know it's rude to drink on stream, Paul, but this is the coldest thing I could find. and I am roasting. So I am doing this so I don't pass out. Also, we should big up one other video. We have compared the Fast and the Furious franchise to Star Trek. I know that sounds weird. It's a video we've done. It's well worth watching, and you might be surprised how much you end up agreeing with the thesis that they are essentially the same franchise. But that brings us back to where are we in the Star Trek of it all, Paul? With what do they need to do? We've started covering that.
That's
But what do we really think happens now?
this is the thing. So, one more thing. Give us an old like there, just which goes to get the analysts going. But yeah, no, on so this is the thing. Yeah, we've kind of gone through some of the things that it has to do. It has to do a good villain. Has to reinvent essentially the villain thing. It can't just be a musclehead. It needs to be someone actually physically dangerous kind of thing. Someone conniving and someone interesting as well, which we do think maybe Jason Momoa can pull off. The plot needs to be something more intriguing than just a revenge movie from the villain's side, because there has to be some but we're not. This is the other thing, is I'm not personally asking for like a Gizmo, like the God's Eye thing or something like that.
Yeah,
I'm not asking them to hunt down this thing, kind of. And I'm also hoping that it's not a hostage situation thing, because we've also had that before. Like, I know that there's not many plots to go in with the Fast and the Furious kind of films nowadays, but I'm hoping that they come up with something different.
I am hoping it's a Joker. I am hoping that they're chasing the Merchant of Chaos, that is pinning stuff on them or doing things that they're going to have to deal with directly or indirectly. Because I do think the Fast and the Furious, everybody should be really proud of me. We're talking about ostensibly a car movie, and I'm a car nerd, and yet I'm not talking about cars. What does that tell you? These are action movies, and they've become quite good action movies. And Paul, why do you think people have gravitated towards this car movie that is actually just an action movie? Do you think they've done the Mission Impossible thing well? Do you think, because I think part of the success is people can go in, the setup is there, they know what they're getting, there's a sense of familiarity, there's a sense of family, because we have to use that word anytime we get a chance.
We get a corona every time we say it.
Exactly. I think that's a key part of their success, and that's something they have to get back to in Fast X. If they can get back to I'm getting my fast film again. People enjoy John Wick.
Yeah.
People have enjoyed John Wick 1 and 2 and 4. A lot of people had some issues with 3 because it did that thing where it didn't feel as John Wicky as you might want it to.
It diluted the John Wick.
You diluted the wiki. So they don't have to do a whole lot other than do what they can do best to win people back. Because you're going to get people sitting in the cinema going, if it's a Fast and the Furious film, that's all I expect from it. I don't want any more. I don't want any less. It sounds easy on paper to get this right.
Well, that's I do believe that the familiarity kind of the formula is quite nice. As in, we're all familiar with it, which because it feels nostalgic in a sense. It's, I think we were talking about this. It's a universe as well, kind of thing, which is another part. We know what we're getting into with this thing. We know many of the characters. We know much of the history, kind of thing. So it's that level of kind of familiarity with the only introductions that we ever need really are either our villains or a new person that we know is going to eventually join the team. Most of the other things are like, there's no other group of people that really need an introduction. It's people who are joining the crew, villain. That's it. We know Dom, we know Ludacris, we know Dwight, we know Michelle Rodriguez, so we don't really need those people. So it's a hug in that sense.
You don't even need to know who's died and come back.
Yeah,
like you don't need to know they're back. You can have missed a few films in this and be like, oh, I thought they died, and you're just gonna go, people die and come back in this franchise. Oh yeah, it's fine.
People complain about the comic book films, and there are no which goes consequences of deaths of characters and stuff like that. The Fast and Furious franchise is worse for that. so much worse.
but in a great way. Like there's a comforting idea to it that you're like, I missed one of the Fast and Furious movies. This person's back. I don't really need the explanation. I'm
Yeah.
sure they did it in the movie, but they're all part of the family. The crew is there. What's the crew's mission? It's Mission Impossible again.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the mission?
This is my other thing is that I think that it's also reminiscent of old action films. I think this is the thing. It's a combination of a lot of old action films. This is probably one of the last bastions of the turn off your brain, which could turn off your brain action film. You know,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Which is it just feels that way. Mission Impossible, Ocean's 11, Rambo, Die Hard, which goes all these movies kind of like mixed into the franchise or into the Fast and the Furious franchise. That's what it is. That's why we get that buzz from, because we don't get those films that much anymore,
No.
which isn't a bad thing. I'm not saying that we need to get more of them. It's the fact is that we start having more intelligent kind of like Jason, or not, sorry, like the Bourne Identity films, which are action but not. John Wick is another example of kind of us going back to old school kind of action.
And one of the things you just mentioned got in comments. We just kind of talked around the idea that viewers are accustomed to the idea of cinematic universes now. Thank you, Marvel and others. But people are accustomed to the idea of cinematic universes, not just sequels, but cinematic universes, where there are films that are connected by small parts or connected by big parts. Fast and the Furious has that fast universe thing going on. But it's also got that classic action thing. And you just mentioned John Wick, Jason Bourne. For longer than we've realized, there has been a gap, and people are loving it. It's one of the reasons people are loving John Wick, to have that classic action, but put in that universe style setting.
Mm.
So viewers are getting the familiarity of how modern movies are made in this kind of, we could have interconnecting tissue anywhere, but also, did you like Die Hard and did you enjoy Predator? Because we're also going to do action. And it's a great marriage of two very commercially successful things, which, looking at the numbers as you showed, there's very few movie franchises that have $1 billion entries. And Fast and the Furious is one of them.
That's the thing. It's a universe that has $1 billion entry, which we only know of, I think, two others, which is Marvel and the Avatar universes. You know?
Yep.
And yeah, I do think that's actually a great point. The fact is that they've married the two things. I think the closest we've had before is probably Die Hard, in the sense of having the brother come back in the third one. Jeremy Irons' character.
Jeremy Irons.
That's the closest we've gotten to an action film or an action film franchise kind of universe. Because Mission Impossible is James Bond-esque. It's America doing James Bond. You know, it's not a kind of overly interspersed kind of universe thing. Although it's very good and it does have many characters, many movies. It's not that universe level of things. Now they tried. I think they're trying to go that way. They see that, but yeah, Fast and Furious would be along the lines of be in connection with Marvel, the Avatar and Fast and Furious. I think that's an interesting.
Paul, before we go to comments and before you bring up whatever the final topics are, should we warn people that this has all been a scam, and the next 55 minutes are going to be me talking about every single vehicle that's been in it and why the Corvette Stingray was a missed opportunity when they finally introduced it. For all the card nerds out there, stay tuned until next April, when one of our episodes is going to be entirely about all of the vehicles of Fast and Furious, because April is our car month. And we're not doing it yet. So yeah, next year, Paul, you are going to have to listen to 60 minutes of why this Dodge Charger is better than that Dodge Charger. Riveting radio.
I have 10 months?
I have 10 months to kill me.
10, 11 months of learning every single car that's been in every single movie or kill you. So
I thought you were going to say 10 months to tattoo eyes on my eyelids. So...
Oh no, I can see. I'll just paint it blue or green, and just see some floating eyes, and then eventually you'll get into the right place, and that'll be grand.
Perfect.
But yeah, let's go into some of your comments, which is Patrick needs to write their titles. My eyes were immediately drawn to that one.
Yeah, I mine too, because I thought somebody was going to say something else. And yeah, you know what? The Fast and the Furious titles write themselves, but my gosh, out there have so many people had so much fun with the puns. Like this franchise, as we have already covered, is not just automotive puns, but in the naming itself. After they did Too Fast, Too Furious, and then started throwing numbers in like Fate of the Furious and all the rest, there's an entire internet subculture of people trying to work out what Fast and the Furious 28 would work best as a pun. Also, Brian says he's never seen a Fast and the Furious movie. Yeah, you have. Have you? And Nora says, "Have you never seen a Fast and the Furious?" Brian, get on it, man. They're like just start at the fourth one. You'll love it. It's an action movie.
There's there's universes out there of films that you haven't seen. You haven't seen Corona and family being mentioned practically in it through an entire movie.
Just start with 4 or 5 and watch, either watch 4, 5, 6, and 7 or watch, 5, 6, and 7. It'll get you hooked. You'll be surprised, and it'll be easier to watch the other ones that aren't as good then. I always say start at the top, because chronological order is a whole other thing. But if you've never watched any of them, you're better to start with the best and then go back to the others when you have some, when it's already broken down your barriers. Because some of the first one's a harder watch now for the first time. I think it showed its age quite heavily.
It has, yeah, just with some of the graphics that they do try to use. Which is, yeah, look at those numbers. I now know why it's a franchise. Yeah, that's the thing. Which goes, it is, yeah, it's been pretty good, money wise.
And Gavin says, "How is no sequel being called Furiously Fast?" Because they couldn't find a number pun in there yet. But yeah, that would have been a good one, and fair play. Did you hear right that the main guy from Tokyo Drift is slated to return? Main guy, as in Lucas Black, the actor. Yeah. He did show up in the last one, and people didn't realize it was him, because originally he was like 45 playing an 18-year-old. Now I think he's 79. The last time, like what I'm saying here, people, is he played much younger than he could have.
Yeah.
And then they had a problem when they brought him back years later, and it's like, oh God, that's the guy from Tokyo Drift. And it was the same for everybody else who'd grown up.
Yeah. Like there's like a few, I think Gal Gadot is also rumored to be coming back in this one as well. There's like, once again, I think we're having the full kind of list of people like trying to come back in this one, I think. So
just so we can get the resurrection count up, for anybody who hasn't seen it, big spoiler, her character also died previously. So eventually everyone will have died and come back at least once.
Yeah. Except
for Paul Walker, because of the actual reality of mortality. So that's kind of sad. I wish I hadn't thought of that. I do want to call out, Brian says, "I think I've become Heroeside's resident cynical curmudgeon." Every channel needs one, but I thought that was me and Paul. So don't step on our toes there. I think we're curmudgeonly enough about all of this. I definitely think, Brian, if you just watch Fast 5. Just pick in the middle one. Watch it and come back and let us know. We know how many movies you get through. The internet deserves to know what your taste barometer would think of a Fast and Furious movie.
Yeah, very much so. I also just want to, and I'm going to just... So we also did a poll, we did a poll of which is what we thought of the Fast and the Furious kind of franchise. The 3 options was it still revving strong, it's running on fumes, or explosion over story? And it seems like explosion over story has won out in that sense. So thank you very much for the feedback on that. Look out for some of the more polls. No, not at all.
Not surprised.
So,
which is... I here's my final prediction, Paul. It started off interesting, became terrible, went back to being interesting, then had a middle stride of a very strong franchise, has let itself down in recent years. I think Fast 10 and its 2 sequels, I think we could be into that middle era again. I would not be surprised if in a few years we're going, oh yeah, Fast 4 to 7 were all great. And then Fast 10 to 13, or whatever names they give them, were also great, which would make this a franchise of over a dozen movies where over half of them were good. You can't say that about many franchises.
No, that is true. I like that is a hard thing to pull off nowadays. Kind of thing. But yeah, so I guess my feedback on it there would be that yeah, it started as a know nothing movie group, turned itself into a franchise that a lot of people loved. Obviously had the downturn of whatever of every franchise has, which is, and I have the first one of the Fast X kind of trilogy ending films or duet films will definitely set the precedent for the next 2, 3, 1. So we should really watch Fast X closely to see if it's going back to that normal thing, or is it still jumping the shark even further. So
I will be seeing it in the next day or two, and expect a 5-word review on our Twitter. And it will be either much joy or much sadness. I don't think there's an in-between with Fast and the Furious.
No. All right. Thank you very much for watching. This has been about the Fast and the Furious franchise. Check out our other videos. We have quite a large library. Like, subscribe, ring that notification bell. Do subscribe. We love to interact with everybody. Comment down below what your favorite Fast and the Furious movie is. Is it Hobbs and Shaw? Is it Too Fast, Too Furious? But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Any last words, Patrick, for the video?
It's not Too Fast, Too Furious. No last words other than do give us a like if you've liked what we've done, or if you just like to see us try again and get even better.
Okay, thanks very much. I've been Paul,
and I've been Patrick,
and we've been Heroes Out.
See you next time.
See you next Thursday, 8 p.m. Bye.
Family on
Corona. I don't know why I just sounded like an old English lord there.
Turbo supercharged family.
Manifold.
Danger to manifold.